Welcome back to the Jordan Maxwell Show. You can follow us on Facebook at Jordan Maxwell Show and follow us on Twitter at JMaxwellShow for any messages. And you can leave posts and messages as well. You can always find the latest shows on our website. You can subscribe to the Jordan Maxwell Show on iTunes, and the show is always free. So please support the show at no cost to you by doing your online shopping at Amazon. Make sure you click through the Amazon link on our homepage. So please tell all of your friends about us. To be able to do a quality show, we want people to listen. So thank you for spreading the word.
There's so much about religion that we haven't been told. And the reason why the people have not been told is because it's the guys who are running the planet feel that this kind of information is on a need-to-know basis. And you don't need to know. All you need to do is what you're supposed to do. Just go watch basketball and be a team player. Go along to get along, and everything will be fine. Unless you get out of line and start asking too many questions, then they'll have to whack you. You know, we were talking at the break about the Philadelphia experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Benefit of those who have never heard of the Philadelphia experiment, there have been 2 major movies made on that subject, and there is something legitimately into the story. Then there are going to be those people, scientists, who will say, oh, it's all a bunch of bull that never happened, there's nothing to it. Well, that's what they want you to believe. You know, that's why they tell you, just go on back and watch basketball and don't worry about it, nothing to it. But probably one of the most brilliant minds America's ever turned out, and there's quite a few incredibly intelligent people in this country. But one of them is a dear friend of mine from many years ago, Colonel Tom Beardon. I first learned about Tom Beardon many years ago, back in the 70s, mid-70s, when my dear friend Bill Jenkins was the head of ABC News here in Los Angeles on ABC Radio News. And Bill Jenkins had a radio program at night on Saturday nights. During the weekday, Bill Jenkins was the man who would give the news on ABC News. So he had that incredible voice and that presence of a newsman for ABC News, you know, Bill Jenkins. Bill was an extraordinarily bright, incredible guy. But I was amazed at how many people he knew, all kinds of strange people. You know, he was well-traveled and highly intelligent, but I met him, and when I first met him, I was scared to death when I first met him. This was a very important man to me. I looked up to him, and when I first met Bill, he invited my friend and I to come visit him over at ABC Studios, and he was just in dungarees and thongs, and right, he doesn't have to look pretty on radio. But it was funny because after meeting with him and talking with him, we had a very good relationship. And so he said, why don't you come out to the house this weekend? I'm going to have some friends over. So I ended up going out to Bill's place out in the north end of the valley on weekends and hanging out with him and going to conferences with him. And I met so many people through him. And one of the people was a man named Colonel Tom Beardon and Dr. Bob Beck. Dr. Bob Beck, a lot of people will never know what an incredible man Dr. Bob Beck was. These names were all the old-timers, the scientists and physicists that they were on the cutting edge of technology and the occult world for government. They worked for government, but they were into some real interesting stuff. Well, I knew that Tom Beardon was one of the best scientific minds this country's ever produced, so I asked him one night, there was a big dinner over in Pasadena, and I was invited. Bill Jenkins got me invited. There was about 15, 20 top-of-the-line people, physicists, scientists, engineers. I mean, all of these are very heavyweight people, and some of them work for government. And they were all speakers at a conference. And so after the conference, they all went out to dinner together. And so I was invited. And so I sat quietly listening to all of these great minds talking about subjects that I just blew my mind. Philadelphia experiment and cross-breeding animals with humans and all kinds of strange stuff the Nazis were doing and that this country was doing too. And so when it got kind of quiet, after everything had kind of quieted down, I asked Tom Beardon, I said, Tom, what can you tell me about the Philadelphia experiment? And he says, Jordan, I'm not really at liberty to talk about that. And so, being a fool, I only opened my mouth to change feet. So I said, well, I don't want any national secrets or anything. I said, but is there anything you can tell me? And he says, listen to what I'm telling you. Listen to what I'm saying. I cannot talk about that subject, so just drop it. Well, of course, in front of everyone, I felt about that big. However, as I look back on it now over the years, he answered my question, and that was the way he answered it. Because I wanted to know, is there anything in fact to this story of the Philadelphia experiment? Well, the way he answered it is, Lookit, drop the subject. I cannot talk about it. That tells me there is something to it, and he's not talking. So move on and forget it. So that told me that there is something to this idea of the Philadelphia experiment. The Philadelphia experiment was quite literally during the Second World War on the East Coast in Philadelphia and in that area. They were working on the possibility, scientists were working on the possibility that they could make a ship disappear in radar. Electrically, do something with the ship electrically so that radar wouldn't see it, so that it would be making the ship disappear on radar. Well, the story goes on. I don't know because I never got the straight of the story, but there's been a lot written about it, that when they were doing the experiment, they actually made the ship itself disappear. And then they were all scrambling around trying to figure out what just happened. The ship was still sitting in the water from what I've read, from what I've heard. I wasn't there, but from what I've read, the ship was, you could see the indentation in the water where the ship was sitting, but there was no ship there. So it was still there, but you can't see it now. So it made a ship disappear, and then it made it reappear. They caused it to reappear. Well, I don't know. It could be that it just made it disappear on radar, or they made the ship actually disappear. I don't know, but it's very interesting. It's one of those really strange and interesting subjects, and go look it up. It's called the Philadelphia experiment.
Was a lot of that having to do with the Tesla and his technology, absolutely. Where he implemented frequencies and potentially moving atoms.
Yep, and there's something out there too called the woodpecker. Dr. Tom Beardon and Bob Beck were talking about it. This is maybe back in the 70s. It's very interesting. They called it the woodpecker, and it's actually a signal that's referred to by the scientists who know about it. It's called the woodpecker signal. Off the coast of Alaska is a series of islands off the coast called the Aleutian Islands, and that last little island in the chain is the closest America comes to Russia. Mm-hmm. Well, on the Russian side, I've been told that there were different islands off the coast of Russia also, and then the very last one is a radio station of sorts. It's a broadcast station. And from what I remember, they said that the station required so much power that they had to have their own little nuclear plant there by the station to feed it. That's how much power that station required. It had to have its own nuclear power. What it wasn't a radio station. It was broadcasting a signal that became known as the woodpecker. And if you get today, I don't know if it's still around today, but there was a time when I used to have shortwave sets. And if you turn on the shortwave radio and you have to go back on the dial all the way to one side or the other, back it all the way up, and then slowly but surely go through the dial till you hear it. And when you hit the woodpecker signal, it's a clacking, but the clacking has frequency. It will go up in frequency, then it goes down low in frequency, it goes back up, and then it goes down, back down for about a half an hour, 40 minutes, and then all of a sudden it'll stop. Then you've got to start all over again to go find it again. Somewhere along the dial it's moved. And so what Beck and Dr. Bob Beck and Tom Beardon, these guys were talking about is the fact that it's a signal that the Russians were sending out, and they have, it was like over-the-horizon radar, like a radar machine on that island, but they have two of them, and they're like dishes, like these big TV dishes, and they have a computer that moves the dishes. And so wherever they want to cause trouble on the earth, with a tornado or hurricane or earthquake or whatever, a tsunami, whatever, they can move one of those dishes, aim it, and then on the computer program the other dish moved in the opposite direction, 90 degrees a different direction. And then they send out a very strong, called ELF, extreme low frequency, ELF wave. And it's a very powerful electrical wave that goes out and goes around the earth. It shoots it around the earth, and then it comes back. Well, as it goes around the earth, this one that's aimed a little 90 degrees off shoots around the world, around the earth this way. And so they calculate it to where the two will meet. The two waves will meet, and where they meet, depending on the frequency and the power put into each one, they can cause earthquakes, tsunamis, tidal waves. They can cause rainstorms.
Well, that's similar to HAARP, which is taking place right now in the exact same area, and
right.
And to the next degree, you've got the the chemtrails that they say
that's exactly right.
assist with the HAARP and the frequencies to create weather.
A weather modification, and that's being used in wartime. It's being used by Russia against us, and we are using it against Russia. And
well, they're also using it against the farmers to create
that's right.
Spike either in corn or whatever that product might be.
But the other thing that that Tom was talking about and others were talking about in relation to that woodpecker is that they also will turn it to a different frequency, and then move the dishes around so it hits a different country, and they can make people angry because Nikola Tesla
they can do behavior modification.
Yeah, behavior modification, exactly, and so this particular frequency, when it goes up high and then goes down, the reason why it does that is because, and I'm just paraphrasing what I was told back in the 70s, but that frequency causes some kind of a secretion of fluid in the brain to release fluids in the body that Nikola Tesla had figured out how the body works and how vibrations in the brain cause the body to do certain things. And so it can cause women to become very irritable and very angry. And unless, of course, you were like my wife, who was angry at us all the time. But then also when it goes into low frequencies, was designed for men. And so what they can do is they can cause people in an area, a particular area, where they crisscross the signals to become very agitated and warlike and angry or sleepless, or people can't sleep or they become agitated. So depending on the frequency, they can affect your mental health.
I had a first-hand experience with some of the Tesla technology with a Rife machine.
Oh yeah, Rife.
And a Rife was fascinating. And he was, from what I understand, a gentleman, lived down in San Diego. But a friend of mine had a Rife machine whose mother was experiencing some cancer, and he believes this kept her alive for a while. But anyway, he had the Rife machine and said, "Why don't you try this?" So he actually had the Rife machine. It had an argon bulb at the end, and it looked like a primitive kind of machine. And I said, what the hell? So he turned the thing on to a certain frequency, and he ran the bulb around my body, and I ran it around my head, around my arms, up and down my legs. And I came home that night, and my wife just says, "Oh my God, you stink like sulfur. What's the problem?" I said, I don't know. I said, I tried this machine. She says, "Oh, you just stink," and I smelled like rotten eggs. And what this machine did, and what the premise behind the technology is, each cell and each atom in your body has a certain frequency.
It certainly does.
And the Rife machine, through its argon bulb and its technology, it fine-tuned, the good cells, and it killed the bad cells.
The bad ones. Mm-hmm.
And the smell that, I stunk like for a day or two was the bad cells that had, left
killed.
the body.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure, Todd. Sure.
And see, his name was Royal, Royal, Royal Rife, Rife, isn't it? Rife.
Yeah. And I think he lived in San Diego.
In San Diego, Royal Rife, and incredible man. He designed a microscope that was far in advance of anything that we have today. But that microscope was able to go into a disease cell, into a microbe, and find out its vibrational frequency or whatever, and then use that equipment, the Royal Rife machine, to vibrate and kill off those cells. And so he could kill your disease by just waving the light over you. He'd kill the disease.
It was through the argon and the frequencies.
Yeah. So the medical profession said, no, thank you. That is no possible way you're going to do that. So government came in quickly and shut that down.
From what I understand, they burned down his.
They burned his laboratory.
They burned his laboratory down, and
the
technology was saved in a safe. It's one of his assistants at the time was able to save, and these machines still exist. You can go on eBay and buy one.
I don't know if they're the exact what he was doing, because his was very involved. So I'm just saying there's a lot of interesting things. So you need to look up his name. If anyone listening, if you're interested in some really strange science, look up Royal, Royal, Royal Rife, Rife, Royal Rife, the Rife machines. Read about it. It's very interesting stuff. And then also the Philadelphia experiment. You might want to look up some information on that. Philadelphia experiment.
Yeah, Jordan, I'm curious if we could maybe get back to Beardon for a second. Did you ever have a chance to talk to him about his plans for nuclear waste and how he had figured out how to deal with nuclear waste?
He said that there was already perfected a way to neutralize nuclear waste. He said there's a very simple way to do it. You can neutralize the bad stuff in the nuclear. There's a way to neutralize it. He said, I'm not going to go, he told me, he said, I'm not going to go into it, but suffice it to say, there is a way to neutralize, thereby rendering it no longer dangerous. But that's like many years ago. I mean, back in the 60s, I remember a doctor who worked for the automotive industry. One of the big oil companies was a guest on somebody's show. I think it was George Putnam had him on back in 1964, 65 in Los Angeles. And they were talking about smog and the automobiles making smog. And the doctor said, he said, the reason why you have smog is because the oil companies making gasoline do not want to, what he called crack, C-R-A-C-K. They crack the oil twice. It's a process in which they take the raw oil and they do something with it, a process, and it's called cracking the oil.
Yeah, they use a column called a hydrocracker.
Yeah, okay. So he says, so then afterwards they take that stuff and then they crack it a second time. And that gives them the gasoline. And he said all they need to do is crack it one more time, and that would take all the pollutions and all the pollutants and sulfur and whatever out of the gasoline. There would be no pollution at all if they would crack it a third time. But they decided that it's not cost effective. It would cost us money to do a third time, and why bother? Just put it out there. So they could make gasoline that was not non-polluted at all, from what he said back in the 60s, if they would crack the fuel one more time. But they don't want to do it. It costs too much. So, all right, it wasn't that it cost too much. It would cost anything at all. They don't want to fool with it. So just crack it twice and put it out there. And they don't care. So now if you fly all over the world, which I do, every time I fly around the world, I look out over the horizon of the earth, and all you see is smog everywhere. Everywhere is smog. So what we're doing is we're polluting the earth everywhere you go. There is no place on the earth that's not touched by pollution, but the oceans are filled with pollution. Our water is polluted. Our food is polluted. Our governments are polluted. Our educational systems are corrupt. Our law enforcement and commerce and banking, the whole human system on the earth is dying, and it's polluted, and it's corrupt, and it's evil, and that's why the whole human race is feeling what it's feeling.
Well, but if you look at our society and our infrastructure versus, look at Singapore, you look at Shanghai, you look at the Middle East and Dubai, and how much the governments have put into their infrastructure, where our government, with post-industrial war machine, which is all about policing the world to protect mineral rights in Afghanistan and areas like that. And,
narcotics.
And narcotic trafficking with the opium fields. And,
right.
it's, there's no real monies put back into, if you drive across any bridge in major city, you'll see it's crumbling. Look at the schools; they look like prisons. One of the things that really gets me is a prison guard or a prisoner in the state of California gets approximately $70,000 a year per prisoner, where a student gets about $25,000 per student. And who was it? Victor Hugo once said, "If you build a school, you close a prison. Build a prison, you close a school." And it's pretty symbolic. I think across the country, especially here in California.
Well, that's why prison is a very big commercial market today.
Huge business. The privatization of prisons has become a huge business, and it's got to stop. If you look at the incarceration rate, I think some of the statistics, at least in California, 1 in 100 Caucasians is incarcerated.
Yeah.
There's no end in sight. Look at our U.S. population, or the U.S. versus any other world.
We have the highest per capita prison population
in the world,
on the planet.
Yeah,
and we're supposed to be a first world nation, forward thinking and everything.
Well, we are first. We're first in everything, in pollution, corruption,
violence,
drug addiction.
Yeah, but the one thing Americans do, we are a resilient group, and hopefully, and I think we'll go back to the show, is pointing some of this out to people where if we can assist in someone that makes a change.
Well, look at Albert Einstein said that this is a very, very dangerous world. Not because bad people do bad things, but because good people don't do shit. They don't do nothing.
Well, they have no clue.
They have no clue about it, and they don't do nothing. They just watch it go, and all we know is we just vote for Obama, and that's all we know. And hopefully he'll save the world, And so Americans, the overwhelming majority of Americans, remind me of old Christmas light bulbs,
There's Americans and there's U.S. citizens.
Oh, well, now that's a whole different subject, too, yeah.
Yeah, we can go into that where, we're really U.S. citizens, not
Americans. Well, that's a whole thing. Here's all the documents on that. I was going to talk about all of that is right here. It's kind of hard to really impress anybody with this subject if they can't see it, because there's so many documents. But the bottom line is that look up the word, and I'll go to a law dictionary. Go to a library and get a law dictionary. And look up the word commerce, which you think means business. But look up the word commerce in a law dictionary, and look up the word Congress and commerce, because both of those words mean basically the same thing. Congress and commerce. Basically, it boils down to sex. Sex is referred to as commerce, and business. It is a business.
Well, the oldest profession in the world.
That's right. Certainly is. And so that's why when I see you with some woman, I said, you know what? I think she's bad company. Company? And you say, mind your own business. Business? And you're going to get married. She's going to be your partner. Company, business, partner. That's right. That's why you have to have a license when you get married. Because the word license, a license is a permit to do something which without that permit would be unlawful. Therefore, you need to understand that your body, by law, is considered a corporation. That's why when you die, you're a corpse. because your body is a corporation. You are a company. You may be good company, you may be bad company, but you're a company. You are a corporation by law. Any good corporate attorney will explain that to you. Your body is considered a corporation, a company.
And some of us, or all of us, are surety within the master company with the government.
That's right. A group of people got together after the Civil War in 1870s, and they formed a private corporation. There was a company formed, and anyone can form a corporation. And so there was a corporation formed in 1870s in Delaware, and the company name was called the United States Corporation. And it was a municipal corporation called the United States Corporation, and anyone who worked for that corporation would be called a citizen. So therefore, if you were a member of that corporation, you became known as a U.S. citizen. Citizen was was a word for an employee of that corporation. So today, if someone asks you, are you a U.S. citizen, you think that what the person is asking you, if you're in the bank or anything and they ask you, are you a U.S. citizen, and you say yes, you think that they're asking you, are you in America lawfully to do business? Are you from America? Are you in America to do business? And you say yes. No, that's not what it means. And that's why attorneys will tell you, think about what I'm going to ask you in court. I'm going to ask you a question. Think about what you're going to answer. I am asking you, are you saying of your own volition, out of your own mouth, are you a U.S. citizen? And you think that he is asking you, are you lawfully an American to be here? And you say, yes, I'm a U.S. citizen. Do you know what U.S. citizen means under maritime law? Do you understand what you just said? U.S. is a corporation. It's a company. A corporation, and U.S. citizen means that you are an employee of a foreign corporation. Therefore, you're an employee of a corporation. Now, the corporation is called United States Company, the United States Corporation. Well, all corporations, I don't care how small they are, all corporations have to have a president. All corporations have to have a vice president and a secretary-treasurer. That's just corporate law. So today we got a president, a vice president, and a secretary-treasurer of the corporation called United States Corporation. And therefore, if you are a U.S. citizen, say for instance, and you're living in California, then you are a U.S. corporation employee working for a privately owned company called the U.S. Corporation, but you're living in California. So if you're making money in California, then what you're doing is you now are a franchisee of a foreign corporation. For instance, if you open up a McDonald's here in California, you are not McDonald's. You are merely one of the McDonald's, but you're not the McDonald's. Therefore, you are nothing more than a franchisee. You represent McDonald's and you're making money in California, but you're a franchisee of a foreign corporation, which is McDonald's, and it's not founded in California, so it's a foreign corporation to California. And so if you say that you are a U.S. citizen, that means that you are an employee of a foreign corporation, which is incorporated in Delaware, but its home office in Washington, D.C. Therefore, you are a franchisee of a foreign corporation living in California. Now, in the 1849 Constitution, when California was first founded in 1849, the California Constitution expressly says that no state tax will ever be charged in California. So in point of fact, factually speaking, California does not have an income tax. There is no such a thing as a state income tax in California. But if you are if you are working for a corporation called United States, and you're a franchisee of that corporation here in California, once a year you have to pay the California Franchise Tax Board because you're a franchisee of a foreign corporation. There is no such a thing as a California state tax, but you're a franchisee of a foreign corporation.
And the franchise tax board.
That's right. You pay the franchise tax board, not the state of California.
I always wondered what that meant.
Yeah, because you're a franchisee of a foreign corporation. Now, what people don't realize is that there's two of everything. There's two of everything. I ask people all the time, how many states are on the federal union in America? And they will say 50. No, it's not true. There's 100 states in our union. 100 states in the union.
Correct. There's the state of California, and there's California State.
That's right.
There's
exactly.
the state of Florida and Florida State.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You have Cal State, California State. You have New York State. Yeah.
Well, that's where you don't realize. You'll see at the seal, if you go to any courtroom, you'll see the Eureka is the capital for the state of California versus California State. Its capital is in Sacramento.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And you'll find it all across the board. And back to the old saying,
so
the writing is on the wall.
The writing is on the wall. The bottom line is that there are two states operating in every state. The federal government operating in California is called the state of California. State of California is federal, period. California State is California.
If you go to a state park, you'll see the
California
State Park or the
park of the state of California, which means it's a federal park.
Mm-hmm.
And, and across the country, all over in the different states, all official vehicles, fire department, police cars, anything, trash pickup, any official vehicle, whether it's a motorcycle or a 14-wheeler, it doesn't matter. If it's owned by the state, part of the law, it has to have on the vehicle somewhere the term for official use only. The word for official use only means that this vehicle, whatever it is, motorcycle or pickup truck, it doesn't matter, it's owned by the state for official use only, okay? So when you get your registration every year, you get a little tag and you have to peel it off to stick it on your car. On that little tag, it says, for official use only. So what you've done is you have put the state as the owner of your vehicle on your license. And that's why you have to have a license to drive the car, because a license means a permit to do something which without that permit would be illegal.
Mm-hmm.
So let me explain to you what I'm saying. When you go in to buy a new car, when you drive out with the new car in the glove compartment, or the salespeople will give you a stack of papers that come with the car. And therefore, that is called an operator's manual. So it tells you when to change oil and how to operate the thing correctly. It's called an operator's manual. And so therefore, you are operating a motorized vehicle, whether it's a motorcycle or pickup truck. It doesn't matter. If it's brand new, you're going to get an operator's manual, okay? Because operator means in law that you as an individual are using those wheels for your own personal use. But if you're going to use the wheels that you bought for business, if you're buying the truck to do business, if you're buying the car to run a cab service, whatever it is whatever wheels that you're buying, if it's for business, now it's different. Now it's not your personal use. Now it's business. Therefore, now you are no longer referred to as an operator. If it's a business, you are referred to in law as a driver. That's why you have a cab driver, a truck driver, a bus driver. Driver and commerce means you are making money. It's a job. If you're not making money, if it's just your personal vehicle, then it is an operator's manual. You are an operator. But if you're using it to make money, you are now a driver. And so that's why today everyone has to have a driver's license, because it is assumed that you're going to be using it for business. And because you say, well, what I'm going to use it for is none of your business. Well, it's still business then, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to understand how these words work in court and why you have to have a marriage license. You have to have a driver's license for the same reason you have to have a marriage license, because you are considered a corporation. As I said, when you die, you're a corpse. Why? Because you're a corporation.
What always got me was the word that you'll see all the time, human being.
Yeah, well, that's a whole
dictionary.
different story. I mean, when you get into that.
Yeah.
But I was going to say was, so she as a corporation. So now you got Ford Motor Company doing business with General Motors. So now you got two corporations talking about producing a new product. Oh, really? We're talking business here. Mm-hmm. So you're going to come together and produce a new product. Well, that's fine as long as you get a license, because you are a corporation. She is a corporation, and if this project that you have going on between the two of you, if it doesn't work, you're not going to God, you're going to court, and you better bring your money with you and your house and everything else you got, because it's just business. We're just talking a license to do business, because if you look in the law dictionary, look up the word Congress and commerce, both will tell you, both of those words mean sex. So the whole concept of commerce and the regulation of commerce is Congress, has to do with sex. It has to do with the male and the female are corporations.
If you want to learn more about the topics we speak about on this program, you can find most of the books about these subjects on Amazon.com. Just bookmark our homepage, and when you need to buy something, I mean anything, go to our homepage, click on the Amazon link, shop, and Amazon supports us. Simple, and you will not be charged 1 penny more. We appreciate the support.